Who remembers the story of Adam and Eve? You're afraid I might call on you, huh? Well, how does it start? They're in the garden, am I right? Are things going well for them in the garden, badly for them in the garden? Things are going well for them in the garden. Things are going very well for them in the garden. God tells them that whatever is there in the garden is for them and for their use, with one exception. And what was the exception? The tree of knowledge. Thank you for not saying apple tree. The tree of knowledge. Sheila, you said apple tree? No, this Sheila, not this Sheila, okay? So God said, avoid the tree of knowledge. Everything else in this garden is yours, but avoid that tree of knowledge, because that tree of knowledge could actually lead to your death. Think about that for a minute. If we were to use our bodies as a metaphor, where does knowledge reside? In the head. And where does love reside? In the heart. And what was the relationship that God wanted Adam and Eve to have with him? A relationship of the head or a relationship of the heart? Relationship of the heart. He loved them. He created them out of his love. And he wanted them to respond to his love by trusting him enough to love him back. But they couldn't do that. And so they went to that tree, and they were met there by the serpent. And we all know that the serpent was the devil in disguise. Okay? The serpent was the devil in disguise. But at first they didn't touch the tree. What got them to change their minds?
It was the devil in the form of a snake that said, doesn't love you, eat from this tree.
Okay, well, he didn't say God doesn't love you in so many words. He said what to them? He said something slightly different.
What did God say?
What did he say? That Eva?
If you ate the fruit from the tree, you would gain.
That you could become like God, and God did not want you to become like God. That God did not want you to become like him. So Adam and Eve looked at the tree. They weren't going to give in at first, but once they were told that they could become like God, they said, well, let me give it a shot. And they gave it a shot. And their lives were shot as a result of that, wasn't it? So was ours. Well, that's, if I had more time, I'd talk about that. We call that original sin. That's where you're going with that, right? Well, think about it, right? Well, think about that, though. Did they gain knowledge? You guys, come on, you're like 8 o'clock in the morning. Work with me. Did they gain knowledge? Yes, they gained knowledge, huh? But the knowledge they gained was not helpful. The knowledge they gained was far outweighed by what they lost. They gained knowledge, they gained shame, they became aware of their nakedness, which led to their shame, and they lost their innocence, and they lost the relationship they had with God. So the Adam and Eve story is our story. It's your story and my story. There is something in you and me that makes us believe that we should be our own God. Now people say, nah, I'm not like that. But in reality, think about it. Most of us want to do things our way. Think of the biggest arguments we have with family and friends. It's usually an argument centered around their point of view versus your point of view, their way versus your way. That. There's a part of us place where we'd like to be our own God. But if we look more closely at the story of Adam and Eve, there's something else there, I think, present in that story as well. Every human being, when they reach a certain age, and I think my three sisters have already reached that age, human being, when we reach a certain age, we have to deal with fear and worry. How many of you worry? How many of you worry? How many of you wake up in the middle of the night worrying and you want to go back to sleep and you can't? Yeah, some of you need to raise both hands, huh, John? But it's true, right? That we don't want to worry, but we do. What if someone who was smarter than you, remember we're told that the serpent was the most cunning animal in the garden. What if there was someone smarter than you who said to you, the fruit of this tree, it will remove all of your worries. You will never have to worry again about yourself. And most parents and adults don't just worry about themselves, they worry about the people they care for. You never have to worry about your spouse or your children or your future. Everything will be taken care of if you eat of the fruit of this tree. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but I would believe that there are some folks here, sitting here, and maybe standing here, who would give that fruit a try if it could all of our worries. So when you look at the Adam and Eve story, which is our story, it's a story about our pride, our hubris, thinking that we can be like God, but it's also a story about our insecurities, our doubts, our fears, and our worries. And that tree, the fruit of that tree, offered us the opportunity to get rid of those fears, those doubts, those worries. That's who we are. But this is a story, the Adam and Eve story, about our God too. When God found out that Adam and Eve had eaten of the fruit of the tree and that they were hiding from him, do you remember what God asked them? I'm going to go at it this way. When someone hurts us, what do we normally ask them? Why, huh? Don't we? But notice God's response. God asked this question. He said, Adam, Eve, who? That's a profound question. You stop and think about it. He did not ask them why they did it. What he was asking them in so many words, who blew it for you? Who told you that you were naked? Who messed this up? This beautiful thing we had going in this beautiful garden. And then before they left the garden, God revealed himself even more clearly to them and to you and me. We're told that before they left the garden, Adam and Eve were clothed by God because he did not want them to go into the world naked. This is who our God is. The one who says, who told you? And the one who says, let me clothe you with my love. Let me cover you in your nakedness. I'm sharing this story with you because as Catholic Christians, we have a sacrament that helps us to deal with the fact that we don't know who we truly are, that we're capable of deluding ourselves and thinking that we're God. That there's a sacrament that helps us to deal with our fears and our doubts and our sinfulness. And that's the sacrament of reconciliation. The sacrament in which we say, yes, God, we know you know us better than we know ourselves. Yes, God, we need your help. We need to be clothed by your love. This Wednesday evening at 7:30, we will celebrate the sacrament of reconciliation. in preparation for the great season of Christmas. We're all Adams and we're all Eves, and we all need our God's help. I invite you to join me this Wednesday evening, 7:30, together before our God what we need from him and accept his love that comes through this wonderful sacrament of healing. Amen.